And good evening, everybody. We continue on All-Star Race Weekend here on the S-Ray Sports Channel, here with qualifying for the Snickers Cup Series All-Star Race, our final qualifying session before we get down to it for our main event races. And already we got a number of drivers pulling off track. This is going to be our largest All-Star Race field here this season. And I jumped to the wrong driver. I do apologize. Meant to go to the 3 of Michael Norman. We are going to have, according to my calculations here, we're going to have a total of 22 drivers in the Oreo Truck Series All-Star Race, 23 in the Mobile Cup Series All-Star Race, and 25 drivers here in the Snickers Cup Series All-Star Race. You'll see 22 of them here tonight qualify for the All-Star Race. The other 3 will get in via finishing first and second in the Snickers Shootout, and then, of course, our fan vote winner will get the final transfer spot, but they will start back in 23rd, 24th, and 25th. We are looking at Michael Norman driving the Ford North Korea Chevrolet. First time we've seen him in this ride since the All-Star Race of last season, but Michael Norman gets into this event via a win this season and a win last season. He won at California this season and Lime Rock last season. If you're not familiar with the way that we have drivers locked into the All-Star races, I'll just basically give you an overview. If you have a win this season, you're automatically locked in, and if you have a win after the All-Star race last season, Season 7, that qualifies you into the All-Star race as well. A number of drivers having to come in via one-race deals here tonight in order to take part in the Snickers Cup Series All-Star Race event, but nonetheless, they were able to get him, and everyone that was qualified into this event will take part, as Michael Norman racing side-by-side right now with one of the 2 hottest drivers in Snickers Cup Series competition so far this season. Trent Dunham, 2-time winner this season at Las Vegas and Atlanta. As if that wasn't enough to lock him into this All-Star Race, he also had a win last season at the dirt track of Velton's Arena, the only driver here in this All-Star Race to have 3 wins to lock him into this season's All-Star Race. There are 2 other drivers, make that 3 other drivers that get in via 2 wins that lock them in. Michael Norman, as we just mentioned, is one of them. Well, we're going to actually take this opportunity to go through the field, show you the drivers that are locked into this All-Star Race and why, and then we'll be watching near the end of this the drivers battle for the pole position. Harrison Langford in the number 43 out of Rogers V8 Performance Motorsports is on track in the Ford, I believe it's the Ford Auto Parts machine. I'm trying to remember what its actual sponsor is. Oh, Ford EcoBoost, that's what it is. My apologies. Couldn't think of it. But Harrison Langford this season does not have a win with Rogers V8 Performance Motorsports, but he is locked into the All-Star Race nonetheless. And that was due to a win he had last season at the road course of Champs-Élysées. At that point, he was driving for Richard Petty Motorsports in the 45 Dodge. As a matter of fact, Rogers V8 Performance Motorsports has 3 drivers locked into this All-Star Race, only one of them getting into this All-Star Race via a win with this team, and that is Makoto Iguchi. Both Jake Rogers and Harrison Langford's wins came last season, but they're still locked into the All-Star Race nonetheless. Nick Barney in the number 16. As a matter of fact, that's the number 16. He went to, well, it's not the exact one because it is a different paint scheme and everything, but he was in the 16, I should say, for Roush Fenway Racing last season when he went to Victory Lane at the Watkins Glen International Raceway. He's back on a one-race deal. Nick Barney runs full-time in the Last of Us Light Series, but he is back in Snickers Cup Series competition here to race in the Snickers Cup Series All-Star Race. Right behind him, another driver who is in the exact same boat as Nick Barney. He races in the Last of Us Light Series, but is here in a one-race deal to be in the All-Star Race for Snickers Cup Series competition. That's Richard Johnson. He won last season for Richard Petty Motorsports at Texas Motor Speedway and driving a very familiar paint scheme. If you've ever seen Richard Johnson in online racing, this is the number 98, or one of the number 93 schemes he runs. They put it on a number 93 Dodge for him, and he is driving that out of Uper Motorsports. There's another of those drivers out of Rogers V8 Performance Motorsports that I was talking about that gets into this All-Star Race, but not via a win for his own team. He was driving the number 22 for Penske Racing last season when he ended up going to Victory Lane, and that was at, if I'm not mistaken, I believe it was at Rockingham, UK, and indeed that was the case. So Jake Rogers locked into this All-Star race, former Truck Series champion. Jake Cole, we saw him make his return to Moment Cup Series competition when he was qualifying last night for the Moment Cup Series All-Star race. He's qualifying as well for the Snickers Cup Series All-Star race. Up there near the top of the most winningest drivers in Snickers Cup Series competition. And Jake Cole right now is in the number 39, being fielded by Stewart Haas Racing. He actually drove that 39 a couple of seasons, if memory serves me correctly. He gets into this All-Star race due to 2 wins last season. First one coming in Atlanta, and the other one coming right here at FTF Superspeedway in the season finale. Cody Lamas right behind him. As a matter of fact, Cody Lamas is, I think, I may be wrong, but I think he's the only driver who is locked into every single one of the All-Star races this season. I'm not certain, but I think he is. I'm looking through the field here, trying to see. Nope, there actually is another one. Sean Galligan is also locked into all of the All-Star races. But those are the only 2 that, with me looking through the list here, that are locked into all 3 All-Star races. And Cody Lamas here for Hendrick Daly Motorsports. He hasn't gone to victory lane for that team, but he did go to victory lane last season when he drove the 15 for Michael Waltrip Racing. He ended up winning at Homestead Miami Speedway. Right now he's getting passed by the number 78. Last time we saw that 78, it was Dylan Poteet driving it last season. Now as he's moved over to 31, the 78 was left null and void, but it's picked up here in a one-race deal by Daniel Day in the number 78 machine. So for the first time since the season finale at FTF Superspeedway last season, Season 7, the 78 is back on track for Tweenix Racing. Daniel Day getting into this All-Star race due to a win he had last season at Thornton. So we look further back. There is Dylan Poteet, as a matter of fact. Dylan Poteet getting into this All-Star race due to some fuel strategy last week at Dover, getting the final points-paying transfer spot into the All-Star race. Driving the Baja Blast scheme here tonight. As a matter of fact, Tweenix Racing's got a number of drivers in this All-Star race. They've got James McLeod locked in, Dylan Poteet is locked in, and so too is Daniel Day. We'll see if their other teammates will be able to lock themselves in. Sean Henley and Danny Wells, they'll have to get in via the fan vote or finishing first and second in the Snickers Showdown. There's Levi McIntyre. McIntyre had a really fast lap in the Moment Cup Series race here last night, the Moment Cup Series qualifying event. McIntyre gets into tonight's event, or this weekend's event I should say, via a win at Rockingham, UK. Right behind him is Jessica Shelton, who also went to victory lane this season at Talladega Superspeedway, debuting the Mega Man paint scheme on her number 94 Michael Norman Motorsports Chevrolet. So we move further back here. There is James McLeod. He got in via a win last season at Pocono. And McLeod was another driver like McIntyre who was fast in the qualifying session for the Moment Cup Series race last night. Chris Washer, one of 3 Uper Motorsports cars locked into the All-Star race. His teammates Richard Johnson and Ian Dutta also taking part in this event. Washer gets into this race due to a win that came last season. His win came at Daytona. He was a 2-time winner last season. He has yet to go to victory lane this season. We'll see if maybe a win in the All-Star race could boost up the confidence of that number 10 team. As if I'm not mistaken, they were a championship contender last season, but this season they just don't seem to be able to find the handle to continue on with a great sophomore season at that 10 team. Former Snickers Cup Series champion John Cittadino holds the record for most Snickers Cup Series wins in a single season at 6. And John Cittadino has not been to victory lane yet this season either. Cittadino gets in via a win at Kansas he had last season. We'll see what he can do here in this All-Star race. He's not struggling in points, but he's not exactly doing exceptionally well either. And he made the chase last season after winning that race at Kansas. It was actually a weekend where if you won, you got into the chase. And since then, though, Cittadino has not really been very close to victory lane. Makoto Iguchi is actually the only rookie locked into this season's All-Star race so far. We could have a couple others if they end up transferring in via the Snickers Showdown. But But right now, Makoto Gucci is the only rookie in this field after taking the win in the Great American Race earlier on this season, being the only female to ever win the NNSCRA Daytona 500 and Snickers Cup Series competition. We'll see how she fares here against the veterans. Right now, she is 7th fastest on track and apparently working with former champion John Cittadino. Megan Atkins, right now 2nd fastest on track. Megan comes into this race locked in due to a win last season at Talladega Superspeedway. It was the next to last race of the season. And one thing that we're going to have to keep an eye on, too, is I was actually reminded, even though I didn't really remember it myself, by somebody that Jessica Shelton and Megan Atkins, 2 drivers that have been with Michael Norman Motorsports for the past 2 seasons. Last season, it was Jessica Shelton who helped Megan Atkins win the race at Talladega Superspeedway and get herself here into this all-star race. Earlier on this season, Jessica Shelton won at Talladega Superspeedway. Who was the driver that helped her? It was Megan Atkins. A little bit of one hand washes the other here for the 2 females out of Michael Norman Motorsports, and both of them here in this all-star race. If it comes down to it, will we see those 2 work together in the closing stage of the Snickers Cup Series all-star race? It's going to be very interesting to see if that would be the case. The hottest driver in Snickers Cup Series competition so far this season out of RGE BMW Racing, Sean Galligan, right now currently is 4th fastest on track. 2 wins this season coming from Coca-Cola and Charlotte. And Galligan, without a doubt, has just been dominating the point standings ever since he went to victory lane at Coca-Cola. That move to BMW seems to have been the best thing for Sean because he was winless last season. And those 2 wins locked him into this season's All-Star race. Otherwise, he would have had to have raced his way in via the Snickers Showdown. But man, what a great season he has been having, and he'd love to be able to continue it on with a win here in the All-Star race. There is his teammate, actually, the 2nd of the RGE BMW Racing machines, Joshua Michaels, who ended up going to victory lane at Infineon this season. And we have yet to have a foreign manufacturer such as BMW or Chevy Camaro or something like that go to victory lane in an all-star race event. Could we see something like that here in Season 8? They have a chance. They got 2 entries here in this all-star race. There's Nick Barney again. There's Ian Dutta, the 3rd driver out of Uper Motorsports. Dutta's actually been very consistent this season, but not been the dominating driver we saw when he was in his rookie season with Stewart-Haas Racing. Dutta had 2 wins last season when he drove for Stewart-Haas Racing. So far this season, he's got nothing but a goose egg in the wins column. But his win last season nonetheless, which came at Darlington, is what locks him into the all-star race here this season. Still, though, having a very consistent sophomore season with that 66. Anthony McCurry, who ends up being the only Audi locked into this all-star race event. His teammates Noah Hart and James Silverfox and Tanner Sullivan have to race their way in via the Snickers Showdown, as well as his Pontiac teammate Ralph Mason. McCurry, the only Audi representation here in this field. We'll see how he can do right now. With that being that big pack, he is 7th fastest on track. He gets in via a win at Charlotte, the Coca-Cola 600 last season. There is Dylan Young in the middle of this pack, 6th fastest on track. Dylan Young would have been with the likes of Cody Lamas and Sean Galligan, making all 3 all-star races, but he didn't have a win in trucks last season. But he is taking part in Mobile and Snickers Cup Series all-star races here in Season 8. As right now he is in the Dr. Pepper colors and 6th fastest on track. Dylan Young gets into the all-star race via a win he picked up at Indianapolis last season. He was a 2-time winner last season. The other win came before the all-star race, though, of Season 7. Jake Rogers working together with Daniel Day here. Can't believe I actually have mentioned everybody. It doesn't seem possible. But then again, I might have. I think I have. And it appears this may be the group to get something going here as far as fighting for the pole position, which currently is being held by John Cittadino. He's got it by a total of 1/100th over James McLeod. Then Makoto Iguchi, Daniel Day, Jake Rogers, that's the top 5. Washer, Jake Cole, Dylan Young, McCurry, and Trent Dunham are the top 10. But I think this is going to be the group that's going to get something going here as they'll hit the stripe and maybe make some waves here with just about, well, actually, no, the qualifying session is actually over, I think. This may be the last timed lap for these guys. Can somebody displace Cittadino? No! So it looks like John Cittadino is actually going to start on the pole with James McLeod, who is outside, a former champion and a former Daytona 500 winner. I apparently took a little bit longer going through the field there than I expected to. I do apologize for that. I was hoping to get a little look at the battle for the pole here in the closing stages, but apparently I did not hit that timing quite right. Nonetheless, though, I believe practice session is going to be over in about 40 seconds. They're just giving those other drivers that had a timed lap going the opportunity to be able to complete their timed lap. But I don't think anything's going to change. I think it will be John Cittadino starting on the pole for the All-Star race. James McLeod in second, and Makoto Iguchi, the only rookie in this field, is going to start as high up as third place. Daniel Day in a one-race deal will be fourth. Jake Rogers in fifth. Washer sixth. Seventh place is going to be Jake Cole, Michael Norman eighth, Trent Dunham ninth, and I believe Dylan Young is going to complete the top 10 unless they are going to have somebody at the very last 4 seconds jump up into the top 10, and it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. Session is indeed now complete. Dylan Poteet just passed Ian Dutta, so he will not start dead last. Dutta will start dead last. But that is a look at where everybody's going to start for the All-Star race. 23rd, 24th will be filled in by the drivers who finished first and second in the Snickers Showdown, and then 25th will be the fan vote winner. Next up on our list is going to be the Snickers Showdown Shootout, in which 5 drivers will make their way into the Snickers Showdown. Then we'll have ourselves the Oreo Open, Mobile Open, and Snickers Showdown, where 2 drivers from each of those will get into the All-Star races, and then Dylan Poteet joins me in the booth for the Oreo, Mobile, and Snickers Cup Series All-Star races. Hope you'll be tuning in for those as we continue on the race weekend here of All-Star Race Weekend in Season 8 on the NNSCRA Sports Channel, offline racing at its best.